Greetings and welcome once again to the Gaming Codex, the show right to explain to you all your various terms and words used to describe video games in the video games industry. And today's term is that of open-ended. And what exactly would that be? Well, according to a general definition, a game that is sufficiently non-linear is sometimes described as being open-ended or sandbox, though that term is incorrectly used in those categories, and is characterized by there being no right way of playing the game. Whether intentional or not, a common consequence of open-ended gameplay is emergent gameplay, meaning that if a game assigns you an objective, it doesn't necessarily give you a fixed way of achieving that objective, or even limit you to a fixed number of tools or a fixed progression path towards your objective. You are free, if you will, to decide whether or not to approach it directly, indirectly, or through various other means. A great way to exemplify this is the main difference between Far Cry 2 and Far Cry 3. Whereas in Far Cry 2, the game will give you an objective and then let you achieve it any way you wish to, whether it means invading directly an enemy compound or just sticking to a rock 400 meters away from the enemy and shooting them all with a sniper rifle. The game doesn't care, it doesn't matter how you complete the objective. And it gives you enough leeway, enough flexibility so that no tactic is off limits as long as you have the tools for it. Contrast this with Far Cry 3, where you are always stuck in a certain limited mission area that you cannot even access with the plethora of tools that you would have at your disposal. For example, the hang glider, because of its kind of slow turning radius, you cannot really use it to initiate missions because you will automatically fail them since they have a very narrow area in which you must remain in order to achieve the objective, even though going outside the area would give you an advantage and possibly make it a bit more fun by just grabbing a truck and hitting everybody with it. At its basis, open-ended means that a game will give you a selection of tools and it's up to you to best understand how to use those tools or make your own fun with those tools. A lot of games used to be open-ended, some of the greatest ever made, for example. Thief was a completely open-ended game with levels that you could explore to your heart's content and enough tools that you would be able to implement whatever tactics came to you as being the right ones for the moment. There wasn't necessarily a fixed, guaranteed path that will always be the one that's right for you. Yes, there may be efficient paths devoid of fun, but those will always be there and do not really take away from the options that the game gives you. Deus Ex is another superb example of this. You have so many options at your disposal that you may even not be aware how many options you have at your disposal, mostly because a few of them involve sort of breaking the game, but hey, they're there. And that does absolutely delve into emergent gameplay. You end up with situations, with tactics, with ideas of how to progress that the developers did not fully intend to let you have or thought that you would have, and that's what makes them all the more rewarding to replay. Now, what is the popular definition? Well, that would be open world. Now, yeah, absolutely. Open-ended games and open world games can go totally hand in hand. Again, Far Cry 2, great example. Open world game, open-ended as hell, do whatever you want, wherever you want, whenever you want. But they're not always tied together. I already gave you the example of Far Cry 3, and I'll give you the example of Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag that has missions that you can never, absolutely never accomplish the way you want them to. They will always have a predefined path, a predefined line. They will always work in a certain predefined way that you can never ever change. The same is true for the Grand Theft Auto series. It started out as more open-ended where you could achieve your objectives pretty much however you wanted to. You could make an assassination by just parking a car in front of where the enemy is supposed to spawn, thus blocking their path and then shooting them with a sniper rifle from across the street or bombing their car. Whereas GTA 5 will quite often lead you down a predefined path that will only end when it's meant to end and never give you the satisfaction of having figured out a way to play it by yourself, of you actually having done something. It is a more disappointing way to play a game, I would say, in my own personal experience, but it does offer some advantages, namely that you don't have to come up with cool ideas that players will then learn to use, and You don't have to come up with systems that interact with each other to create emergent gameplay, to give players the ability to choose their own solutions to different problems. And that ties into the marketing definition, which is, but if we make it open-ended, then the audience that doesn't understand that they can have fun in the game won't have fun in the game unless we feed it to them in a direct and clear way that will never change, so that everyone has the same fun all the time. The bigger the game, the better the bet that it is made for the lowest common denominator. And I don't mean that necessarily in a negative way. You want people to be able to play your game, to be able to understand your game, to be able to enjoy it, to have fun, to feel like, yeah, this was worth my money, this was worth my time. And it's a lot easier to do that when you give them a very fixed number of tools, one, a gun, and a very clear problem, a hallway filled with enemies, and give them the objective of going from point A, which is where they are, to point B, which is at the end of the hallway. Some people will find it fun, and it is, like the first time you play it is, but you cannot really build a super complex experience on that, something that will keep people coming back again and again and again. That's why you don't see, for example, Call of Duty, the recent ones, multiplayer maps built like the single player ones, you know, that only let you go in a single direction. No, the multiplayer is absolutely open-ended. You have a bunch of tools at your disposal, you have a bunch of tactics that you can implement and figure out on your own to use the map to its best potential to suit your needs, whereas in the single player you will just follow the waypoint marker. And then you start to consider, wait a minute, isn't Call of Duty just being sold on the back of its multiplayer? So are you saying that the marketing people are wrong about this? Yes, in terms of what it takes to make a quality game, a game that is actually rewarding to play and not just a throwaway title that you'll never remember, never pick up again, and never, absolutely never ever actually enjoy unless it's got a really good story, and let's face it, that's not Call of Duty. Then open-ended is the way to go. The vast majority of video games that are still being remembered because of their gameplay, because of how they work, are open-ended. It's the ones that let the player express themselves the most. Some of them that are still linear and do not really give you any choices are still remembered, but because of their story, because of their characters, because of anything but the gameplay. A great example of this is Assassin's Creed 4. Everybody remembers how cool the ship fighting was when you just travel through the seas and fight any ship you ran into. That's fun, that's engaging, that's sort of open-ended. None of the game is actually like that if you want to actually progress through the story, through the events. Nothing in the game is like that, which is why nobody remembers the droolingly awful mission design of the game. They just remember the parts they enjoyed, they actually have fun with, which was sailing around, listening to sea shanties, enjoying the beautiful atmosphere, and blowing up somebody else's ship, because that was fun and open-ended in a way. So closes another chapter of the Gaming Codex. Come back next time when we will talk about a brand new subject. Goodbye.